this week's episode of Ushio and Tora. The origins of Tora and Gurren are finally revealed, and we also get to see the return of Hio, the yokai-slaying exorcist, who finally comes face to face with the yokai that killed his family. There are some big details in this week's episode of Ushio and Tora. We are finally getting to learn what exactly Tora is. We've always known that he's been this ancient yokai who originally went by the name of Nagatobi Maru, but in this week's episode, we learn specifically that he's a certain species of yokai, which is known as an Azafuze. It might even be pronounced Azafuze. I'm not really sure. I was watching the Japanese version of the show, and I hear them saying Azafuze, so that's how I'm going to pronounce it. So we get to learn that Azafuze are these demons, which were originally humans, which wielded the beast spear, and when they wielded the spear, they allowed it to take over their body and transform them into yokai. Basically, when Ushio was going insane in the first arc of the series with the beast spear and transforming into a monster, he would eventually transform into a creature which looked just like Tora. And in this week's episode, not only does Gurren return, but we also get to see a number of different Azafuze return, who all look like the extended cousins and family of Tora. Superficially, they all have the same colors, but they have different markings, different hairstyles, and some of them have some pretty jacked up teeth. But what's really interesting about these guys is that they have no ill will towards Tora and Ushio at all. They're not malicious. They want to kill the Hakumen no Mono, and they are drawn to the power of the Beast Spear. This is also where we get to see the return of Gurren, who is honestly, I think, my favorite villain from the entire series. We already have his backstory in this episode. He's a real wicked-looking character, just a black version of Tora, with these three swords which are embedded in his mouth, going all the way down into his jaw, which looks extremely painful, but he seems to enjoy it quite a bit, and he can actually use these blades and weaponize them by turning them into long swords in battle, in conjunction with his electric abilities. And that seems to be the default abilities of all of these Azafuze. They seem to have, like, lightning that they can shoot from their head, or like different weird abilities they can use and weaponize it in different ways. All I know is it's pretty freaking awesome. So the story in this week's episode is actually really simple, immediately picking up from last week's episode where Ushio had fought against Gurren and his entire army of demons. He saved his friend Asako Nakamura, who seems like she's going to be just fine, but probably out of commission for quite some time. I mean, she was nearly burned alive, not to mention it looks like she's going to be hanging out in the hospital, so we're probably not even going to see her character until the end of the series. Rest up, Asako, eat some chicken soup and drink some Sprite, you're going to be just fine. But at the beginning of the episode, Ushio and Tora return to their home, and they end up running into Hio, the exorcist, who, thank God, because of his special eye abilities, he can actually tell who Ushio is. He still has all of his memories, so basically his eye allows him to see through the bullshit. But as soon as they arrive at Ushio's house, all these other Azafuze just show up and they're like, what the hell is going on? Who are all these other Toras who are just showing up out of nowhere? Except that they don't want to attack Ushio and his friends. Then Gurren shows up and decides to start messing shit up. Him and Tora start fighting, and that's also when the big revelation comes in that Gurren is actually the one that killed Hio's family. It makes perfect sense. We've all been looking for the evil version of Tora since the very beginning of the series when they introduced that character for the very first time, and he definitely fits the bill. So Hio definitely wants to get revenge against this guy, but we also get a really big backstory from Gurren as well. We get to learn that in his past life as a human, he was known as Sokue, and he was this psychotic killer who basically just killed people for fun. He was a psychopath, and eventually he was driven away and fled into the mountains, and that's where he found the Beast Spear, which allowed him to kill demons, and he became a very successful demon hunter from this point. The thing is, he allowed himself to be consumed by the Beast Spear, and that's what eventually transformed him into the evil Gurren. The thing is, though, now that these things are dedicated to the Beast Spear, all they want to do is kill Hakumen no Mono. They're constantly driven to go after this monster, but because Gurren was so evil as a human, and because he had so much darkness in his heart, he actually ends up deciding to work with Hakumen no Mono, because it allows him to go around and kill people continuously as he's always liked to do. So, Gurren is just pure evil, wiping the floor with Tora, fighting against Hio in this week's episode episode, which had some really exciting action to it. I love how he's able to incorporate all of his exorcist tags and all of his knives and those weird ninja kunai that he throws, which are always attached to razor wire. As cool as that stuff is, Gurren just makes him look like a punk in this episode. A lot of that is the fact that Gurren can not only use like the default abilities of Tora, like shooting lightning, he's super powerful, he has claws and everything, but those blades which are embedded into his mouth can actually extend, turn into swords, and he can actually use those in a number of different ways. And I honestly thought this is going to be the end right here, like Hio was going to be able to defeat Gurren, get his revenge, and that would be the end of the entire episode. But no, it looks like they're going to be pulling a Gundam where the villain shows up, they have a little bit of a scuffle, and then they run away, and that's what happens in this episode. Gurren decides that he's going to run away with his army as the other Azafuze turn back into stone for some reason. I'm not really sure why they turn into stone. I wasn't paying attention to that stuff that much. I think it's a little strange, but now Ushio and Tora realize exactly what's going on, and of course Ushio is probably going to be very curious about Tora's past, something that Tora is not getting into at all. And apparently these Azafuze don't even have memories of their past, maybe only small glimpses, although I have a feeling that Tora probably knows a little bit more than he's letting on, but he's certainly not going to talk about it out loud. Tora, again, ends up being my favorite part of this week's episode, not just because he's a really fun character, and he's really fun to watch in all of his action scenes, but I just love all the little moments with him, like after this huge battle they have, which is really intense. At the end of the episode, there's this great shot of Ushio and Hio just sitting down at the table, and Tora is there, and he is just having so much fun eating this popsicle. Just the look on his face, he looks like a kid who's having the best damn time in the world, and this is just another one of those reasons why Tora is such a classic character. What's the rundown on this week's episode of Ushio and Tora? Not much happened this week, but a lot of important details were dropped on us, especially about the Azafuze. It blows my mind that Ushio might have actually transformed into the demon that is actually wanting to eat him. I think that's really clever, and I loved all of the different designs of the Azafuze. Some of them just looked completely weird, mostly in their hairstyles, but a lot of it was seen in the teeth. There were some guys that had teeth that were just completely jutting out. There were guys that had really short hair, and they didn't have as much personality as, say, Tora and Gurren, but they were basically there just to sort of explain what happens when a human wields these things. They transform into an Azafuze, which is a very special type of yokai dedicated to the destruction of Hakumen no Mono. Of course, if you have darkness in your heart, or you're just a bad guy, you're going to go against the grain, and you're going to end up being sort of a rogue Azafuze, and that's exactly what Gurren is. Although I still think there's a little bit more to Tora. I don't think that he's just sort of like your standard Azafuze. I think maybe he's even the original one, because they did mention that there was one at one point, and he might have been like where everybody came from, and it would make sense. He's the main Azafuze of the series, so that's pretty awesome right there. So this was a really fun episode with a lot of big information, finally getting to learn what the Beast Spear is capable of and what it can turn people into. It's not just a weapon, it's a transformative weapon, which can completely change someone. So something about that has always been very intriguing to me. That in the sense that this is still just a fun show that is pulling all of its inspiration from 90s anime series, and I just love it. So this wasn't a perfect episode. Again, there's always moments of artwork and animation which could look a little better. That being said, it was entertaining as all hell, so I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, Ushio and Tora fans. You might see something you like. But if any of you guys did watch this week's episode of Ushio and Tora, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. What did you think about the revelation of the Beast Spear and that it could transform people into yokai just like Tora? Do you think that Ushio might even go through another big transformation by the end of the series, becoming even closer like his actual sidekick Tora? And what's the deal with Tora and his backstory? Are we going to learn about that soon, or are they going to save that more for the finale of the series? Make sure to tell me what you want to see from the rest of Ushio and Tora in the comment section below. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching this review. Make sure to smash that like button and share this video with all of your friends. If you guys would like to, please subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews and our weekly podcast show. You guys can also follow us on social media. All that stuff will be in the description box below. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!